I would say the first one that I really learned was to just stick with it. It just like probably every 6 months in those first 4 years, I was like reconsidering even having the job, but something just always told me to stay.
In today's episode, Courtney and I sit down with George Elossais, and he's going to be talking about how he has helped his agency go from 200 policies a month to now 600 policies a month on average and more in just a 2.5-year time frame. He's going to talk about how he changed up the office training, what he learned along the way of being a team member now into the management role. He's going to talk about how he's getting his team to produce auto, fire, life, and health all within the same conversation within the first 30 days of hiring. He's going to be talking about marketing and everything they're doing. We have over a page of notes. I took over a page. Courtney took over 2 pages. I'm extremely excited for you to hear this conversation. With that being said, let's start the show. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your hosts, Michael and Courtney Weaver, and we are super excited about our guest today, George Elossais. George is an amazing manager, team member for his agency that has taken his agency over the last 3 years from 200 policies a month to now 600 plus. George, welcome to the Buzz, my man.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much for coming on today. We're extremely excited because, one, just like we were just telling you, so many of our peers that listen to the Buzz, they always get super excited about new agents that are on and team members that are on. And I feel like you have a combination of both. So I'm super pumped because you went into an existing book of business that was doing okay, 200 policies a month. I wouldn't necessarily say struggling. Maybe they were struggling. You'll be able to tell us the story. But now y'all are doing 600 plus a month on average. You went from an office that was probably in the top 500, maybe 1,000 agents to now a number 6 agency in the company out of 20,000 agents. So we're pumped to hear your story and how you went about this the last 3 years and lessons you've learned along the way.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy the last couple of years, but yeah, I would say there's a few like main phases, and like I don't know, the rest just kind of took care of itself. So.
Okay, before we get into what your role is now, I'd love to transition us from how you started and then how you kind of worked into the position that you're in, and kind of talk a little bit about the differences between the two. Or if you started right off the bat in the role that you're in, kind of walk us through a little bit about what that looks like.
Sure. Well, so if I go back to like when I started in insurance, that was about 7 years ago. So I've been, 7 year ago as a team member. And it actually, I'd always been in sales jobs. Like my first job, I was 16 selling TVs at Sears with, if anyone even remembers that store, with like a $6 an hour base pay plus commission. So I pretty much only have had
George, you are
jobs.
Talking to some 80s babies, all right?
Yeah.
So we grew up with Sears, man.
I'm ready to take a Sears photo, man. Like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Yeah, that's what's up.
That was my first sales job at 16, and I had commission and everything. So that's like where I would say like the first like sales thing I did and where I learned to sell originally. But so 7 years ago, I joined on as a team member, and my first year, I actually only wrote. It took me a year to write my first life policy, and when I did it, it was like a $6 a month like term bump. So like, and it was like existing customer and everything. So like went from there to like really focusing on the craft, and then I would say like basically 4 years of just like sitting on my hands and listening to the agent I work for right now. And I also worked for another agent there in between when we had to move. But I had 4 years of just sitting on my hands and just learning as much as possible from people that were a lot better than me. And then I started, I would say, I don't know if I can say I was really good, but I guess if you looked at the leaderboard, my name happened to be towards the top most of the time for like different groups we were in, different territories. And that's when I had the opportunity to be the sales manager at the Chad Birch agency. And back then it was a guy that, didn't want me to be his manager, a guy that another sales guy that we moved to service, and then a new guy we had just hired. So like that was kind of like the starting point. And, I was still doing a lot of production, doing a lot of the training, but back then the first thing I really focused on was shortening the amount of time to get someone to their first life or health policy. So I had a goal of every single new hire, I want them writing auto, fire, life and health on raw new business within 30 days. So like, 'cause I was like, if I can get someone to do that, like all the little skills and mental things involved with getting to that first life or health policy, if I can do that on raw new in 30 days, I can get people running very quickly. So that was the goal. And back then, first, 2 hires after that goal didn't happen. But since then, and with the last 6 hires, we've done that. Like in the last 2-3 years, pretty much last 6 hires every single time within 30 days, auto, fire, life and health. So within 30 days.
All right. So you just said a lot about that. I want to get to the financial services production within the first 30 days, but I would just be interested, what are like the top 2 or 3 things you learned the first 4 years of sitting on your hands? All right. Is what you said. I know you're doing more than just sitting on your hands, learning from others that were better than you or maybe better than you at the time. What would you say were two or three of the biggest learning lessons that you could share with our audience?
Yeah, I would say the first one that I really learned was to just stick with it. It just like probably every 6 months in those first 4 years, I was like reconsidering even having the job, but something just always told me to stay. Like, I don't know, just every 6 months, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know about it. Maybe maybe medical device sales seems cool and maybe, I don't even know. But just something just always kind of just kept me doing it. I was like, just sticking with it. So just the way that's compounded, I wouldn't change anything about it. The second thing is, like, even if someone would tell me something, I'd get advice or I'd learn something and I didn't necessarily agree with it, but like they had the credentials to show like why it might be legit. So as long, anybody will say anything, but if they have some credibility, and even if they said something that like I didn't really agree with, I would still give it a real go. Because I was like, I can always go back to what I was doing. It's just the problem is I would give it a real go, do it for enough time with enough focus, and I'd be like, oh, it actually like was a good thing, So even though I'd want to like think that something wouldn't work, I would still give it a serious go, knowing I could just always go back to what I was doing. Yep. I just never end up going back to what I was doing. So
open and coachable. All right. Willing to try new ideas. I like that.
Yeah.
I like the first one so much. That's one of my favorites of like, you can't ride 2 horses on one ass. Like you got to pick a horse and ride it. So whatever it is, like commit, do it. Like if you're going to do it, send it as long as you can. I love that. The second one, I want to dial that in a little bit because being willing to learn and being willing to try. The thing that I am learning right now is really taking advice from people that have had lived experience, not just theory. Like not just something that they heard, but something that they actually tried. So when you're going through this 4 years of learning, was there a way that you were vetting or did you just try everything?
No, I mean, I was always vetting. I'm a real stickler about that. So there's got to be some leaderboard, some statistics, something that, measured by a third party that I could like really quantify and make sure, whatever advice from that person was legit. Otherwise, I was not even going to, because I will just sort of dive in and listen, once that piece is there. So they've got that credibility piece has to be there. Then I just go all in. So.
Well, I think the insurance industry is interesting too because you have, excuse my language here, but you have these freaking dipshits like your Brad Lees of the world or your Andy Elliott's of the world that have never sold insurance, never sold life insurance, for example. Like I'll never forget this one advertisement I saw of Brad Lee's like, oh, your family would just suffer, you jackass. Like instead of you going to the bar, why don't you just spend money on? And it's like that would never work. Like you obviously have never sold life insurance because you're the only jackass in the room right now. Like. So I think this is really good. Like that's a great question because if you've never sold, and maybe this is because we've been in it and we may be biased, but if you've never sold insurance, I've sold a lot of things in my life. Insurance and financial services are one of those that are just different. It's just different. Like if you've never done it, it's going to be hard for me to take advice from you because you don't have the experience. You have no idea what I'm going through.
For sure. Well, even if like, you're meeting someone new at some like party or whatever, and you say like you're in insurance, you sell life insurance. People are always like, life insurance. Like they can't even comment on it because they don't even know where to start. You know, everybody's thinking about it. They know they should buy it at some point, but it's like sold not bought, and they're like, oh, you sell life insurance? Okay, yeah. Like there's just nothing, and that's what tells you like how unique it is somehow. So.
Yep, exactly right.
I want to I want to rewind all the way back because I know that our listeners are kind of in different phases in their career. The first year, it took you an entire year to write a life insurance policy. Why do you think that was?
I really, the person that really nailed this down and figured it out was my agent and like now father-in-law. He figured out that 6 months in, I like barely knew how to use any of like the applications, like the software. Like I was talking to people, I would have more talk time, more quotes than anybody. But like if someone said yes, I didn't know actually how to like do the application and process the payment. Like that was like the only piece that was kind of like neglected at that point. And ever since then, we've always like, really hit that really hard with all of our new people. But he's like, odds are, and when I'm seeing other agents and talking to other team members, that policy they might not be writing. It's because they're afraid the person's going to say yes and they don't know what to do. So I would say that was like the first big piece of it was I just didn't even know what to do if they did say yes. And then the other one was like we at the time had a focus of writing life and health on existing customers only, pretty much. Like you would like write the car and the home, meet with them in a year, hope for the life or health policy then. So I really had to like prove myself on the P&C side before I would even have the chance to talk to an existing client, let alone one with life insurance. So I'd say those two pieces together are definitely what slowed it down to 1 year. So.
Okay. So let's talk about the 30 days because you're saying now we're getting our new hires and they're selling the Three Kingsmen or they're selling auto, fire, life, and health in the first 30 days. What do you think has been like the big success to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one is just like the intention of it. Like sometimes we start someone new and we're just like waiting to see what they'll do. Right? There isn't like, you've got to hit this or we'd like you to hit this. We're just like hiring someone new. We're excited about them, which, everybody's always excited about new hires. Otherwise, why would you have hired them, And then day 90 rolls around. But so one is
I'm not so excited anymore.
We haven't set expectations and things are going off the rails.
So I would say one is the intention. And then two is like the first 2 weeks, someone in our office is not even touching phones. First 2 weeks, we're shadowing, we're practicing as many applications as possible. You've got to buy every policy on yourself, which that doesn't count in the 30-day metric, right? You have to buy it on yourself anyway. That's a given. And that's just 2 weeks of just like absorbing the process, practicing the applications, absorbing just 2 weeks of that. Half your days shadowing, half your days training. For 2 weeks straight. Then weeks 3 and 4, we have people hit the phone half the day and then shadow the other half the day. And weeks 3 and 4 is when they'll call that lead and write auto, fire, life, and health. And I think that the reason that's working really well is we're really getting people to a point where they feel comfortable hitting the phones. And instead of just like throwing someone on the phones and seeing what happens and giving them feedback, when they're shadowing that second round after they've done the calls themselves, well, that's their brain is interpreting that shadow experience like totally differently. Because sometimes you'll sit and shadow someone, you're like, well, that looks like a piece of cake, and then you do it. But then when you see that, make the calls yourself, then shadow them again, it's just a different experience. I don't know how to explain it other than it hits the brain a little differently, and you learn a lot more about what you should be doing and little nuances of each call.
Yeah, that's just part of the learning process that you have to actually apply the information versus just absorb it. It's the immersion stage of actually like practically applying it. I'm curious, in weeks 3 and 4, who are they calling? Are they calling lists? Are they calling internet leads? Are they calling X dates? Like, what does that look like?
Oh, yeah. So what we do is we pull a list of defectors. We pull all of the leads we bought in the past and scrub them to be not on the do not solicit. And if we recorded any X dates on those old leads, we'll call those around, like a month before they renew. But long story short is they're not calling any new leads. They're only calling the old stuff, which is good and bad. Obviously, it's gonna be a little harder to call a colder lead, but there's also no competition on those leads either. So.
That's how we grew our book, man.
Yeah.
Nothing but freaking cold calling old leads. So, all right. So anyone that doesn't know what a defector is basically like a win back, right, George? So
yeah, win back, right?
Like
someone that was an existing customer that left. Correct.
Yep. And then leads in the past, that's easy. And then X dates. Hopefully you guys know what an X date is, but it's somebody that you know when date. Their renewal is. That's right. So, all right. So so weeks 3, well, actually before I get to that, so are you not having your new hires bring any like leads to the table that they know? Like we used to have new hires bring 50 names and numbers of people that weren't currently working with our company, and then 20 people that would be willing to meet for like life insurance. Are you bringing any hot leads to the table with new hires, or you're just starting them on old leads, smile and dial, let's get this rolling?
Pretty much just the leads we provide them. Something we do too that helps them learn applications is we'll say like, hey, reach out to friends and family, say you're new, say you're just trying to learn the applications and quote them that way and just make it kind of like a no pressure sale. But
practice
that's about
quotes,
it.
Baby.
That's about all we're doing there. So.
Okay. I love it. So how are you? So obviously you're training them when the first 2 weeks and weeks 3, weeks 4. It's not like the training just stops. So what's the accountability or what's the coaching look like when they're bringing up auto, fire, life, health on that initial conversation? Like I would just because so many new people, they struggle, right, with having the confidence to even present an auto policy. Agency owners, imagine a world where you had a coach or trainer in your office that reported to you every single day, that your team had access to every single day. And the reason why most of you don't have that already is because they're extremely expensive. Usually most sales trainers and coaches are going to cost 6 figures a year. I want to introduce you. I'm so excited to announce the launch of our new business, Agency Coach AI. This is going to provide an AI coach and trainer at you and your team's fingertips 24/7. It's a coach that never takes the day off. It is a coach that reports directly to you. It is a coach that coaches your team the way that you want them to be coached. It practices and role plays with your team every single day, and then is going to coach them on what they did well, what they could have improved on, recommended trainings that they can watch. Then it's going to report to you or the sales manager in the office exactly what was done in that practice session, exactly what was said, and exactly what they coached the team member on. Then we're going to listen to every single live sales call. Think about this, a coach or trainer that sits with your team every single day listening to every single live conversation, going in or coming in and going out. No more wondering, hey, is my team actually having the conversations that they've been taught? Hey, is my team actually asking for the sell? Hey, is my team actually making pivots? Hey, is my team actually doing the things that they're supposed to do compliantly? No more guessing. It is all going to be documented and given to you word for word. And the best part about this is after the live calls, the coach coaches them on what they did well, what they could have improved on, and any recommended trainings that they would recommend them take and watch. No more wondering what's going on in your office, regardless if you're there or not. This is going to give you the most transparency and accountability that you've ever had before in your agency career. And the best part about it is, with your team having a coach and trainer that they can lean on 24/7, their confidence is going to grow and they're going to become the best sales professional that they can become because they have access to have coaching and training 24/7. If you are ready to take advantage of AI, if you're ready to have more time back in your business, if you are ready to quit having to choose between training your team and growing your business, go to agencycoachai.com and check out the demo or shoot me a text 816-727-7610 and I'll be in touch and we can get a call scheduled. Other than that, let's get back to the show. So what's the accountability and training look like to really get them? Like, are you just saying you have to do this or you don't have a job? If you don't do this, you're not getting paid? Like, what does this look like?
Yeah, so there's a couple pieces to the accountability. Like there's set activity requirements you have to hit, for example, like number of calls, number of quotes, to even like earn your commission for the month. Right. So like if you're not like keeping up the consistent activity and you don't hit these specific metrics, I don't care what you sold, you're not getting paid unless you did it in this like very consistent way. And then so that's, part of that's going to hold them to it. The other thing we
What,
do
if
is
you'd be willing, what are those metrics? Not to cut you off, but what are
oh,
those
you're
metrics?
good. So you have to do 1,200 calls, 20 fact finders, which I'll cover what that means, and then 4 written referrals. But a written referral can be interchanged for, or sorry, 4 written referrals can be exchanged for, like every 1 referral is 4 Google reviews. So you could also get 16 Google reviews or,
Heck yeah.
whatever version of that you want. So that's part of it. And then like that fact finder, that's part of that requirement. So like really we're looking for 1 good fact finder a day, essentially, right? If there's, 20, 23 business days. So the fact finder is basically these like set of questions that we have to have answered about every single prospect the team talks to. Number of cars, wreck vehicles, their income, their assets, when they plan to retire, what they have for life insurance, what they have for health insurance. And I can even like share it with you guys. I don't know if you'd want to share it with people or not, but so basically you have to fill that out. And what we do is whenever someone has a conversation, fills out that fact finder, they send it to me, and then I always give everybody feedback on it. Well, what was good? Hey, this looks great, or you did what you could, or why is this person's life insurance section always blank, right? Like that one team member just can't get the conversation there. They can write some health, but they can't write some life. And then we use that to really target our training. So like, for example, if one person has a specific problem, well, we're going to, like, let's say we get 5 fact finders and there's, they're all blank or really weak on life. Well, we're going to role play just that part of our sales process and that part of our script to always hone in on that, right? And I always say, like, every role play, we want to work on one thing. Just we want to improve one thing every role play. But then on the other side of it, we were also getting lots of fact finders from the whole team that were really weak at talking about the retirement accounts people had and what they had set up. So that becomes a team training, right? So we set up the morning meeting. We talked about how to have the conversation around there for everybody, because everybody was obviously struggling with it. But it just becomes this like, it takes no time to review, but just this really clear picture of what the whole team's doing. Because now we're going to be up to like almost 10 salespeople. Well, I can't sit in and listen to 10 sales calls, right? So having those fact finders is really just kind of the, you know exactly what's going on. So
Yeah. Here if I roll.
No,
all right.
get
So,
it.
question, George. Because I know these fact find, and I'm sure you made your own fact finder, but these fact finders have been around for freaking years with
Totally.
the company, right? And so and I'm speaking out of my own personal preference here, just myself as a team member, myself as an agent leading team member. So the problems that I ran into, and so I want to know how you've overcome this, is why I'm asking this question. The problem I always ran into with myself being an inexperienced salesperson when I tried to use a fact finder, that I was very robotic, right? I would just go question after question after question after question. And then as a new agent, I tried to incorporate something like that in the very beginning. And I was like, no, like I don't want you sounding that. I don't want you just going down an itemized checklist. I want us having conversations with people, because conversations is what closes deals. Like processes don't close deals, like conversations, figuring out what's most important to the customer, solving the need, closing the deal. So I want to know how because if I've struggled with that, I know hundreds, if not thousands of agents have struggled with that. So how are you overcoming team members that just want to go down an itemized checklist? I do my job. I did my job. Here's your checklist. Get off my back, versus incorporating a checklist into conversations to where now you're having conversations that are actually meaningful and converting.
Yep. Well, and this is where there can be some divide amongst, different trainers, different insurance agents, but because we found, right, kind of same thing, that not everybody's going to be a wordsmith. Not everybody's going to be able to have that conversation or even use like the right words, right? Like to get there. Like one of the things that always like frustrates me when I'm training someone is they say like, do you know about whatever benefit, instead of asking, what do you get for that benefit, for example, right? Totally different response, right? The yes, no versus like an open-ended question. So what we've actually done is and it's been through a few iterations, but we've actually like scripted our entire sales process, word for word, greeting to close, every pivot, every line, every little thing to just like totally control like the outcome that we're getting, right? Making sure we're hitting all the lines, doing it with whatever wording worked the best, right? We did a lot of testing on it and we would change wording. And then now there's really just no excuse either, right? So it's just clear cut, do exactly this, say exactly this. And then it's a matter of like, okay, well, are you going to read it or not? And that will definitely be a factor that determines your future at our office. So if you're going to read it or not. So
I love expectations. I think expectations are key. Everyone needs guardrails. So let's say that somebody's not hitting it. I would love to know, because that's the big question that we get. Okay, this is great when somebody is doing this thing and they're hitting their commission and all of that. They're continually not hitting the 1,200 calls, 20 fact finders, 4 written, or 16 Google reviews. What's the process look like for you guys?
yeah, forest fires seem to put out themselves. When you're working and not getting paid, after a while, people just don't want to stick around. Right? We're good with it. If you want to be there, do your own thing and produce and put up 30, 40 apps, but not follow our process, that's free production for us. It's just those people don't seem to stick around. So it really just takes care of itself.
Do you have any kind of conversation or anything when they're not doing these numbers?
For sure. I mean, we'll have like plenty of conversations where it's like, hey, like this is how close we were. And we do like 2 check-ins a month to make sure we're tracking on activity anyway. But after a while, like if you don't get paid like 3 months in a row, we're just we're moving on. We're spending our time on the people that care. So yeah.
I love it.
But we will do that. But that's a good point. Like 2 check-ins a month to make sure we're tracking for our activity requirements. Otherwise, that's about it. So.
Okay. The only other thing I have with this topic is that, and look, I know you well enough to know that you're selling based off of value, right? So that's not how everyone teaches and trains and things of that nature. So partly why we wanted to have you on the buzz. But when you're doing auto fire life health on the upfront conversation, what a lot of agencies don't talk about is the churn on the back end, right? So I know a lot of really high producers, they brag about their production, but they also have like a 40% lapse can on the back with PNC and an even worse penetration level with life and health on the back end too. So, and this is before the 12 and 18th month mark. This is the redheaded stepchild that no one likes to talk about, but I do like to talk about it because I think it's really important. So, what are you doing differently, if anything, to keep production on the board? So maybe after your team writes it, what's the onboarding look like? What's the customer retention look like? Or since implementing these processes, I'm sure you have seen an increase in lapse can just due to the sheer increase in production and volume fact. I would just be curious, like how you're trying to go about managing that in a volatile space like we're in, where rates are increasing every 6 to 12 months.
Sure. So I think churn's obviously something you have to be really conscious of because you don't want to just bring it in and have it go out the back door. And you probably do this too, but what I don't think enough people think about is like when I'm trying to solve a churn problem, I'm always thinking about like how the conversation started and what happened first, right? That's always my first, because once they're saying they want to leave, odds are it's too late to save it. That's not where your retention numbers are really going to get boosted.
Right.
So we have a rule, and it's also covered in the script, where we're not going to make a recommendation for liability limits. We're not going to recommend life insurance. We're not going to recommend a DI, a disability policy. We're not going to do it unless we ask specific questions to qualify the person and then ask specific questions to calculate their need. So we won't, there's nothing transactional. We don't say the word bundle. No one ever knows our multi-line discounts. No customer we talk to ever knows that. And I think that naturally is kind of taking care of our churn on the front end of the conversation. Yeah, we might lose some people because they don't want to get into that much detail on liability limits or life insurance or disability. But then what's happening is we're getting the customers, and a lot of times paying more than they were paying before, for that new recommendation, right? So they came with us because we offered all those things at those higher limits, not because we saved them money, which just that alone has been huge for not having things churn right out from under us. And then on the back end of it, we're not getting too fancy with onboarding, right? We're writing everything up front. No salesperson gets paid until it issues properly, issues correctly, and then we're going to do our annual reviews with the person. But beyond that, that's how we have a very manageable churn. Financial services, we have no problems with the financial services sticking. Sometimes we might lose the P&C to some really serious rate increases, but the life and health always seem to stick around. So.
Okay, I want to segue a little bit. You talked about your annual appointment. I want to get into, you took your agency from 200 policies to 600 policies, the agency that you're managing, and you did it with your existing book of business. So if you're not meeting with people until their annual appointment, let's talk a little bit about what strategies you have used to make that happen. We've talked about new hire training, setting expectations on the front end. What else? Let's go into that one.
Yeah, so I would say kind of the different phases were like one, focusing on the training, multi-line training, covering all the lines. We focused on that like really hard first and got people selling, making more money, doing a good job. Then we realized that everybody has like every team member has a different level of like where they're good and where they will stop producing because they're making enough money. The only problem is that's not enough money for me. So then we really implemented accountability, and then just making sure that, hey, if we're not accomplishing this, we're not going to get paid, essentially. And then the third phase of it, once we started getting, really tacking on people, was basically having a way for everyone to get the questions answered that they needed, get help as they needed with whatever situation they were working on when someone else more tenured was busy, just because I also didn't want them asking like someone else that was pretty new, because in that 3-year span and that I've been sales manager, our most tenured salesperson is only 2.5 years. So it's a very green team. So you don't want them really talking to each other too much to get information. So we made like our own like internal AI called AI George that like answers our team's questions, and like we monitor and keep track of that as well. So that's been huge for getting questions answered. I would say those were like the different phases, and kind of like the biggest things that really moved the needle were not just focusing on in-book clients for life and health production. In fact, at this point, where we're doing 80 life and health a month, about 70% of that is coming from our raw new conversations now. So like our in-book life and health productions stayed pretty similar, maybe increased a little bit, but the rest was made up through writing it on raw new and just sort of having that conversation. And we also just got to a point where our marketing we've got our marketing so dialed in, and we can shift. We also use AI to like figure out how to spend our marketing money, that we're always moving our money to the best lead sources, whatever's closing the best, whatever's working the best, depending on, whatever factors like vendor, state, line of business. And when we do that, we're just feeding the team the best possible opportunities. That's when we started getting, the 6-figure team members, the over 100 apps a month per team member, as we really started like focusing on, on the back end, figuring out what leads to be buying and where to spend our marketing money just to feed them the best opportunities. Once we had the conversation down, once we had the accountability down, we really started dialing in the marketing. So
yep. So let's talk about. So I definitely want to talk about AI. But first, before we get there, so you went from, when you started this, you went from roughly 3. I think you said that it was you and 2 other people. So 3 team members. Yep. To now you're at a total of 10. So obviously the size of the agency has increased. But I would be curious. Marketing spend, I would assume, was pretty low, probably at the 200 policies a month. I'd be curious what marketing spend looks like now. Like, what's the average marketing spend you're putting into each team member to help them be successful?
Yeah, I guess probably the best way to put it is we're always feeding about 15 new leads per day per full-time salesperson, essentially. So like whatever spend you have to hit to do that. But we also pay super close attention to it to make sure, we're also spending money in the best sources too. So, but that's roughly what you want to look for, is 15 new leads per team member per day. And obviously they're not just touching it once either, right? We're hitting them really hard during the entire marketing window, like in their first 90 days. But yeah, that's roughly what we're looking for.
And are your leads, are they typical internet leads? Are they exclusive leads? Are they live transfers? Like where are these leads coming from?
Yeah, most of it is going to be internet leads. We get some, like I call them like landing page leads, like they're on like our specific website, like our specific website looking for a quote. We get some of those when we can, but probably I would say if I think about that 15 per team member, I would say maybe about 70% of it's just straight internet leads that we're calling out on.
Okay. So you're doing roughly 100 to 150 leads a day in the agency? Is
Yep.
that fair?
Yep, 150 new leads, yep.
So you're spending $1,500 a day on average times 24 working days, so $36,000 a month at 600. Okay.
You're getting pretty close there. Yeah,
Yeah, man. I've done this enough times. I can do quick averages. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So I'd love to know, you got any more dial-in questions with that? So AI, let's talk a little bit about that, man. So you said AI George, obviously that's George Elossais, right?
Elossais,
I would assume you built it after yourself, my man. So you're doing a really good job in the AI space. I'd love to know how you're using the AI within your agency. And you said that you're also using AI or using like ChatGPT to help you with like the marketing figures, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so I'm actually doing it all like in my own AI that I build, just because I can set like parameters on, on like what, how it's answering. So the first thing is like I basically just made the AI version of me that our team can just basically ask questions to whenever they need to. Which initially was really good because like what do I do in this situation? Like they like will dump in a paragraph. Customer said this, I said this, here's what happened, what could I have done differently? So it's going to help them do that piece of it. It'll draft their emails, text messages, based off our internal templates. And so that, first of all, was just huge because like now, like if I'm in a meeting, if I'm on a trip or whatever, we're still getting quality responses to the team, and I can monitor who's asking what, and the answers and modify them on the fly too. So that way next time it gets asked, right, it's going to be a little different. It's going to be more accurate based on my edits. The other thing it did that I didn't really anticipate that I'm really running with now is it's like the end of question shame. So like now no one's like afraid to ask a question to look dumb, right? Or they don't want to look dumb, so they don't ask a question, they'll like make a mistake. Or when you're asking real George the same question, the third time I'm going to have a little bit of tone on it. AI George won't do that, right? So that's been huge too, I think, just for like the employee experience, like the team member experience. And then we use it for our marketing. We plug in our our lead spend by vendor, by state, right? Because we're marketing 4 states. We're buying from 6 different vendors, multiple lines of business. You multiply that out. We're over like 20 different inputs you can control. I probably couldn't control one input, so 20, you really need to have some AI help with that. And based on our cost to close, based on the revenue we're generating per line, per state, per vendor, the AI is really telling us how to spend our money. Because a while ago, you didn't have to pay attention to it. But what would happen is, like, a year ago, we would just spend money on leads. A couple of vendors were good. But what was happening is we were doing the same things, spending the same money, and getting different results. So now we're at a point where every 2 weeks, we are rotating out our lead spend and kind of just like reallocating the portfolio. That's been the thing that kept us consistent and really allowed us to keep growing too.
It's amazing how good those internet leads are in the first like 2 to 6 weeks. Then all of a sudden they start getting a little questionable. So now you're just like,
right.
Bam, let's switch lead providers, baby.
Yeah,
so you're
exactly.
switching lead providers every 2 weeks, or you're just auditing like your spend with each lead provider?
Well, so we have a thing where we're always going to buy at least 1 lead per day from every vendor, right? We always want to have a feeler. It's just controlling, like we're pretty much like tapped out for vendors, right? So we're buying from everyone, and we'll even add more like as we can. But we're just increasing or decreasing the spend with each vendor based on, what's doing well and what isn't. But we're always going to buy at least 1 per day per vendor. just to sort of have a feeler, because sometimes a certain state might get more competitive or a certain line from a certain vendor might be a little better than others. We're always paying attention to that. So, but we're not totally like cutting off a source.
Okay.
I love this. I could talk about AI all day long. I get so freaking fired up about this because of how much time it gives back to the human beings. Like there is so much information that these things you can actually train them and build them to give you your time back. So I love that you have created
To be
this.
you.
Oh, yeah, it's like, and to your point, George, it's one of the reasons when we built Agency Coach and we wanted to have the role play feature, the thing that I always struggle with is I don't want to look stupid. Like I want to get better in the dark. Like I want to come out and just be like, wow, she's amazing naturally. Look at all of this. And that's not how it works. Like you have to practice. And to your point, none of us have the time to practice like we need to. And if you ask the same question, real George, real Courtney, real Michael are going to be like, okay, hi, here we are again. So I love that AI and tech is moving us at a rapid pace, especially in the insurance industry. When it wasn't too long ago, I was still faxing deck pages, and I'm like, okay,
Which
all right.
this was probably before George's time, but it is crazy.
He did ask us about Sears, and we're like, dude, we were sending
I'm just trying
in,
to figure out
mailing
what
in
a fax
business
is. No, I'm just kidding.
What's a fact? Okay, so I want to hear your perspective because all of us are actually in the trenches, like building AI tools for insurance agents. I would love to hear kind of your take on where do you think like this is going to take insurance agents and their careers in the future?
Yeah, I just think it's going to be, it's kind of just changed our role in the workplace in a way where it's like, we're just going to stay being able to like think high level, think grand vision. And then the AI is doing like the nitty gritty work that we don't want to do, right? Instead of like writing something out or making a plan and then double checking your plan, right? It's going to make the plan and you just have to double check it, right? So it's just going to, it's going to allow you to, you know, like the old saying, like work on the business, not in it. Well, like you're pretty much only gonna be working on the business now because the AI is working in the business. And then from like a sales side of things, like the thing that probably will not go away is people like people, right? And if it is human versus machine, well, humans are going to want humans more than machine anyway. So it's just, we're still going to have a place where we're going to appeal to like the emotional side of making decisions. And that's where, you know, the AI will probably tee something up to us, but we're still going to have to be there to close it. So I'd say from, you know, business side, working on the business more, sales side, being the closers, right? Just kind of hitting that last little emotional piece that people need, because if people could buy things and buy insurance without humans, they would have been doing it by now, right? All the landing pages are there. Even some of the largest like companies, like insurance companies that sell insurance online, well, about 56% of their business still comes from independent agents too. Even though they're one of the largest, you know, internet auto insurance companies, about half their business still comes from independent agents. So that to me tells me everything.
We're here. Agreed. Make humans better. Let's do it. George, this has been such a great conversation. If someone wanted to connect with you, follow you, what's the easiest way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, if the spelling of my name's right there. If you just search my name, you can find me anywhere: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Happy to connect. Always willing to hop on a call and talk through things. So,
such a good combo.
Okay. That's all I got.
That's all I have too. Time and attention are by far our most valuable assets. We appreciate you spending some of that with us today. Go out, make it great.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.